With the holiday around the corner, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the 3 best books to read when starting oil painting. These books really helped me so much when I started oil painting. I could have not made it that far without these books. Of course, books are not the only thing that we need when we start oil painting. Books are complementary. Nowadays we are lucky enough to have plenty of things, plenty of ways to learn how to paint. So I would highly recommend to read books, watch YouTube videos, get workshops, get mentorships, and go to art school if that's something you can do. I was not able to go back to art school. I already did an art school. It was not about painting, but I already went to art school when I was young. So to me, going back to art school was not a possibility. So I bought books and I watched YouTube videos, but definitely books is a must-have in your library if you want to learn how to paint. I will talk about 3 books today. I place them in order of importance. So if you have the budget for only 1 book, I would recommend to buy the first one, the first book. So it's the last one I'm gonna talk today. It's like a podium, first, second, and third. All these books are absolutely worth it. If you can have them all in your library, that would be the best. If you can choose only one, I would recommend the last one I'm gonna talk about today. Starting in the 3rd position on this podium, on this ranking, this book is an absolute must-have in your library. This is the Oil Painter's Color Handbook by Todd Casey. This book is an absolute must-have. It's like a Bible for oil painter. It's all about colors and pigment. In this book you will have some exercise to make. It's not a book, the author says that himself, it's not a book that is mandatory to read from the first page to the last page. It's more a book where you can open and pick and choose your information. You can definitely read this book from the first to the last page. Like I said, there's exercises to make in this book, so it's very, it's an interactive book in that sense. I discovered this book when I started to follow the artist on Instagram. I follow this artist because he gave me a piece of information that I couldn't find anywhere else, and to me it's a shame. I will show you what it is, this piece of information. But this is an absolute shame that we cannot find this information nowhere, and especially we cannot find it from the manufacturer paint. I don't understand why this information is not available to artists, because it's one of the most useful information when you start to paint. This artist took all his knowledge and his time to give us this information. I think he even gave us this information for free on his Instagram. I started like that. I printed one of his pictures where he gave the information, and then later on when he released that book, I thought I wanted to support this artist and to support his work, so I bought this book. But I almost bought this book just for this one piece of information. I will show it to you right now. I think it's an absolute must-have when you start oil painting. So of course this book offers way more than this single piece of information. It's an absolute must-have in your library. It tells you a lot about pigment, about colors, about mixing colors. All the information you need about colors is in that book. But the single piece of information that is worth to purchase that book for is this one. So this is the color wheel he made, and on this color wheel he basically plotted most of the oil painting tube that we use, most of the color that we use. It's not all the colors on the market, but definitely the most common that we find on an artist palette. So for example, if you use cadmium red light, once you start to mix paint, once you start to mix colors, all this will appear very clear in your mind. It might sound abstract if you didn't start to learn how to mix colors. But for example, the cadmium red light, once you start to mix colors, you need to know where this color is located on the color wheel. If you want to know transparent iron oxide red, for example, Already the name is pretty tricky because it says red, but it's not a red. You see, it's not just a red, it's more subtle than that. So all this information, you have it here on this color wheel. They are all plotted, all the little dots that you see on this color wheel shows you where the color belongs on the color wheel. It might sound abstract like that, but this is an absolute must-have information when you start oil painting. Once you are used to mixing colors, this information you forget because for you it's just normal and it makes sense. But to me, at the beginning, when I started to mix colors, I was completely lost about where the color belong on the color wheel. So of course for cadmium yellow light, for example, or cadmium lemon yellow, it might seem pretty obvious where it's located on the color wheel. But for other colors like transparent iron oxide red or just other colors, it might be more complicated to plot them on the color wheel. And having this information, at least for me, it really helped me a big deal. So this is the first book that I recommend, an absolute must-have in your library. The second book, this book that I just presented and the last book that I will present lean towards the highest price. It's more on the expensive side of the price scale, and the second book is the cheapest of this ranking. So the second book and the second place on the podium goes to Landscape Painting by John F. Carlson. This book is very cheap. It's like I got it for 12 bucks, I think. So this one is an absolute must-have. It's cheaper because it's printed in black and white, and the paper is more like a newspaper paper, but it doesn't change anything to the value of the information you get out of this book. This book is an absolute must-have. If you start oil painting, I will say that this book is aimed towards plein air painting. So if you are not planning to paint outdoors, maybe this book is less relevant to you. But I will say that anyway, there is good information in that book, but it's true, it's really aimed towards plein air painting, painting outdoors. This book is amazing. I will say that this book was the following book after I finished the last book I'm gonna talk about today. Once I finished that book, I needed more knowledge about painting outdoors, and this is the book that brought me that knowledge. I will say that this book is very more aimed towards landscape painting, so it's plein air painting, but it's more specifically aimed towards landscape painting. This is something I don't do much. I started with landscape painting because for me it was easier, there was less people around me, but what I really like is cityscape, is painting in the city. So in that regard, this book didn't offer me information about city painting, but it offers a lot of information about plein air painting. And for example, it talks about clouds, it talks about snow, it talks about sky. All this you can find in the city. So it's not only about landscape, even if mostly it talks about landscape. These information are useful in other setup. It doesn't matter where you paint outdoor. This book is an absolute must-have if you think about plein air painting, if you think about going plein air painting. It's very easy to read compared to the first book I present, the color handbook. This book is more a book that you read from A to Z, from the first page to the last page. It's very easy to read. It has a very good vocabulary. It's a very good English, but it's very accessible. And it's very straightforward. The information are very good and very useful. So now we are going to the last book of that ranking, of that presentation. This to me, it's the absolute must-have book in your library if you start oil painting. This book is more than a book to me. It was a companion for several months when I started oil painting. When I started oil painting, I felt lost. I gathered information here and there through YouTube, through a website that I found, but I felt kind of lost, and this book really provided me the knowledge I needed and the knowledge I wanted to start oil painting with confidence. This book was more than a book. Like I said, it was more like a companion that I will open every morning in the studio and feel less alone in my learning process. This book is very well written. He has humor, he has everything I needed to find basically. This book doesn't feel like somebody teaching you oil painting in a rough way. This book feels more like you have somebody here in the studio next to you, talking to you like a friend and advising you as best as possible when you start oil painting. I was very touched deeply in my heart when I read that book. There was something that resonated with me so much. If you have the budget to buy only one book in that list, this is definitely the book you should buy. Again, this is personal, but to me, it touched me in a way that I still remember today. And this book is an absolute must-have. The artist seemed absolutely amazing. He passed away a few years ago, and this was a very sad news, but what he left behind is absolutely mind-blowing. Even though this book has been written a few years ago, it's still totally relevant today. And the way he writes and the way this book talked to me was absolutely mind-blowing. I'm sorry I don't have more vocabulary to express my gratitude towards this book, but I hope and I feel you can feel in my voice and in my way of saying things, even with my poor words, you feel that this book really touched me within, like inside. And that is absolutely amazing. This book is Alla Prima by Richard Schmid. You can see the amount of annotation I have, and there is way more inside. This book clearly changed my life. It's an absolute must-have in your library. So this book is a book that you're gonna read from A to Z, from the first page to the last page. This book was an absolute pleasure to go through. For me, that I'm not a native English speaker, the artist is smart enough and has enough knowledge to make everything appear very easy. It's very easy to read, even though the vocabulary is a very good English vocabulary. It's not a simple vocabulary, but even though it seems easy to read, it's very accessible. And I think you need to be very, very good to teach that way, to be able to simplify extremely complex idea and concept. He succeeds simplifying them in a way that it appears very simple to the beginner. So to me, it's an absolute must-have, Alla Prima from Richard Schmid. I know he released other books. I haven't read them yet. I can only tell you what I know. And so this book is absolutely amazing. He has also exercise in that book. So for example, this is one exercise I did from that book. This is called the color charts. So you can see it here. That's the type of exercise you can make from that book. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It's absolutely useful. Everything that book taught me, I still remember today. I still remember the humor, the sense that he has to teach students how to paint. It's absolutely amazing. It's very smart, very humble. I don't have enough words to express my gratitude towards this book and towards the artist that took his time to write these words and to share his knowledge. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. It's maybe the holidays around the corner. But yeah, no, it's just amazing, and I'm very thankful, very happy that I found these books, these 3 books. Again, if you have the budget for only one book, buy the one from Richard Schmid. I think it's an absolute must-have. I started like that. I personally started to buy the one from Richard Schmid. Then I bought, I think, the color handbook from Todd Casey. That was a very good complement. It's a good complement to all the books you can have. And this one I bought once I started to go more outside painting. I felt the need to have a book specifically for plein air painting. So I bought this one last. So again, I hope this selection of books talks to you. I hope it's gonna help you if you purchase them. I'm really thankful about all this book and what they brought me in my painting journey. These books will talk to any painter, no matter the medium you use, but they are specifically made for oil painting. But most of the advice can be translated into acrylic, into gouache, into watercolor, but it's true, it's specifically made for oil painters. So there is some chapter that are just specifically made for oil painting, but most of this concept can be translated in other medium. There's no problem with that. But yeah, they are specifically aimed towards oil painter, and that's what we do, that's what we make, that's what I do on my channel. I use oil painting, so that's why I chose the 3 books for today's video. I hope this was useful to you. I will see you soon. Now there is the holiday coming, so we are approaching a slowdown in the painting process. I paint less lately. I take care of my website, I take care of my videos. I have less the occasion to paint. All this will go back to the normal pace in January probably, and so I'm looking forward to see you in the next video.